The afternoon was golden, a perfect canvas for my kids' laughter, until Karen Mitchell's shadow snuffed it out. I stood in my driveway, watching Sophie and Jack pour lemonade at their little stand, their grins wide as they handed cups to neighbors, when her note landed like a cold snap. Your unauthorized business violates HOA rules. Shut it down. Karen Mitchell, HOA president. She'd reported their joy. Her clipboard a petty gavel swung against my family. What she didn't know, what Pinewood Grove didn't know, was that I'm Ethan Cole, a billionaire investor who could buy this whole street with a flick of my wrist. She'd squeezed my kids' dreams. I'd squeeze her world with a truth she'd never see coming. The afternoon was golden, a perfect canvas for my kids' laughter, until Karen Mitchell's shadow snuffed it out. I stood in my driveway watching Sophie and Jack pour lemonade at their little stand, their grins wide as they handed cups to neighbors, coins clinking into a jar for their charity dream. The air smelled of citrus and Pinewood Grove's manicured lawns, a quiet hum threading through the stillness, until her note landed like a cold snap, pinned to my mailbox with a nail as sharp as her intent. Your unauthorized business violates HOA rules. Shut it down. Karen Mitchell, HOA president. My grip tightened, the paper creasing under my fingers, a fury sparking deep in my chest. I dropped to the grass, my boots sinking into the lawn, and ripped the note free, its edges tearing as I read it again. That stand wasn't just wood and paint, it was theirs. A weekend project we'd hammered together, a lesson in hustle and heart I'd taught them. She'd reported their joy, her clipboard, a petty gavel swung against my family, her smug rules a lash across their dreams. I'd watched them plan it, weeks of giggles, nights sketching signs, craving the pride of giving back. I'm Ethan Cole, a billionaire investor, not that Pinewood Grove knew. I'd built my fortune over 2 decades, tech startups, real estate, deals that turned millions into billions, craving control after years of scrappy bets. I'd moved here 3 years ago, seeking anonymity for my kids, lived in a modest house, drove a plain SUV, let neighbors think I was just some dad with a lawn. Karen didn't know, couldn't know, the hand she'd just crossed. I stepped inside, the note crumpled in my fist, their laughter a ghost in my mind. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup pitch, my hand shaking as I signed the check. I'd powered empires, kept fortunes alive, a silent force they'd never traced. Now, staring at her edict, I felt the old spark flare, an investor's calm, a father's edge. She'd squeezed my kids' dreams, I'd squeeze her world, with a truth she'd never see coming. I grabbed my phone, my voice low, as I dialed my assistant Mia. HOA hit the kids' stand, pull my holdings, I'm hunting. She'd swung her gavel, I'd swing my fortune. The dusk after the joy dimmed was a gathering storm, a shadow curling tight over Pinewood Grove, the air thick with the scent of grass and my simmering resolve. I stood in my driveway, the lemonade stand a quiet relic under the fading light, its wooden frame sagging where their dreams had stood. Karen's note lay crumpled in my pocket, her words, "Shut it down," a ledger she'd balanced against my family. She'd ruled this place like a queen, her clipboard a crown, her HOA a vault I'd never banked with. Now she'd crossed me, and I'd stalk her with the wealth I'd built. I slipped into my SUV, the engine a low hum, and drove through the streets I'd shaped, smooth asphalt curling beneath street lamps, homes glowing with deals I'd funded beyond their sight. The neighborhood slept, its lawns trimmed, a quiet they'd taken without knowing my hand. I stopped a block from her house, a white fortress at the cul-de-sac's end, roses clipped tight like her grip on this place. My headlights off, my steps silent as I circled closer. Her porch light flickered, her Mercedes parked like a throne, a smug sentinel, guarding her edict. I remembered her welcome, 3 years back, her knocking with a basket and a stack of rules, her voice a velvet hum. "We keep order here." I'd nodded, too tired to care, figuring the kids' stand would stay our secret. I'd been wrong. She'd watched it rise, her eyes narrowing at every nail, her ledger poised to strike. Now it was shut, her triumph a lash I'd turn back. I snapped a photo, the house, her car, The stand's quiet frame, my hands steady, my fury a quiet flame. Mia texted back, her words sharp, holdings pulled, tech, real estate, billions HOAs exposed. Careful, I grinned, cold and sure, pocketing the phone. I'd built that fortune nights in boardrooms, mornings signing deals, a power they'd never traced. She didn't know, thought I was just some dad with a stand, not the billionaire who'd bankrolled empires. I'd squeeze her rein, not now, but soon, with a ledger she'd never balance. I slipped home, the dusk my cloak, the storm brewing. She'd closed their stand, I'd close her vault. The dawn after the storm brewed broke with a restless flare, a light cutting sharp over Pinewood Grove, the air alive with the tang of citrus in my intent. I stood in my kitchen, coffee black and untouched, the photo of her house glaring from my phone, a fortress I'd bankrupt. The lemonade stand loomed outside, its wooden frame a quiet relic, a dream she'd squeezed with her smug rules. I'd free it, but first I'd dismantle her, with the wealth I'd wielded for decades. I pulled my investment logs, deal sheets, asset lists, a paper trail buried in anonymity. My name, Ethan Cole, sprawled across them, a mark she'd never traced, a spark I'd fan into her ruin. I'd built that fortune, 02, a startup pitch, my hands shaking as I signed the check, bankrolling Pinewood Grove's dreams while they slept blind. Now, tracing those logs, I felt the old fire flare, an investor's duty, a father's edge. She'd shut their stand. I'd shut her world. I drove to my office, slow, deliberate, the SUV a shadow rolling through streets I'd shaped.
Ace.
The building loomed, its glass steady, a fortress of my own. Mia met me, her arms full of files, her eyes sharp. HOAs got no leverage. Your holdings dwarf them. I grinned cold and sure, my fingers tapping the logs. Her edict, my blade, a truth I'd bear. I remembered my first big win, 05, a tech boom, my hands steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand, a Pinewood Grove blind to my wealth. I saw it stretch her smug face at the meeting, my logs bared, her reign crumbling under my leverage. I slipped home, the dawn my spark, the trap igniting. She'd swung her gavel, I'd swing my billions. The dusk after the spark flared was a tense ripple, a shadow curling tight over Pinewood Grove, the air thick with grass and my resolve. I stood in my driveway, my boots planted firm, the investment logs a quiet weight in my jacket. The lemonade stand loomed, a relic of their dreams, shut by her smug rules. I'd face her, test her, see how deep her ledger ran. Her house loomed, white and smug, roses clipped, a fortress I'd squeeze. I knocked hard, the sound a crack in her silence, my pulse steady as the door swung open. She stood there, her blazer crisp, her smile a thin lie stretching too tight, her eyes narrowed, a queen scenting defiance, her voice a velvet hum. Ethan, what's this? The kids stand, I said.
Oh.
My voice low, cutting through. You shut it. She crossed her arms, her clipboard a shield, her chin lifting with smug certainty. Rules, no businesses. It's done. Done? I stepped closer, the logs heavy against my chest, my grin cold. You've got no vote, no right. Her face twitched, a crack in the stone, but she rallied, her voice sharp. Each OA rules, rules I can break. I cut in, my eyes locked on hers. You'll see. She stiffened, her heels clicking as she stepped back, her smile faltering. Don't push me. No push, I said, turning away, my voice ice. Leverage. I left, her glare burning my back, the squeeze sparking. She'd swung her wire, thought she'd won. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup, my hands shaking as I signed. This was deeper, her theft, their stand, a Pinewood Grove blind to my fortune. I'd spring the trap, not now, but soon, when her guard dropped. The night after the squeeze sparked was a quiet forging, a stillness coiling over Pinewood Grove, the air thick with the scent of citrus and my intent. I sat at my kitchen table, the investment log spread like a ledger of her undoing. My name, Ethan Cole. A steady mark across them once more. The lemonade stand loomed outside, a relic of their dreams, its wood sagging under her edict. I'd free it, but first I'd dismantle her. With the wealth I'd wielded for decades. I pulled my phone. Mia's voice a low hum through the line. HOA meetings at 7 Clubhouse. She's pushing rules. I grinned. Cold and sure. My fingers tracing the logs. Her edict. My blade. A truth I'd bear. I drove to my office. Slow, deliberate. The SUV a shadow rolling through streets I'd shaped. The building loomed. Its glass a steady weight. My desk a fortress where I'd forged empires before. I remembered my first big win. 05. A tech boom. My hands steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper. Her arrogance. Their stand, a pinewood grove blind to my billions. I saw it play out. Her smug nod at the podium. My logs bared. Her reign crumbling under my balance. The streets stirred. Larson's light flickering. Thompson's gate creaking. Eyes on her house. A whisper rising. I slipped home. The night my cloak, the trap's balance laid. She'd shut their dreams. I'd shut her reign. The dawn after the trap's balance steadied broke with a restless shimmer. A light spilling sharp over Pinewood Grove. The air alive with the faint tang of citrus and my simmering resolve. I stood in my kitchen, coffee steaming untouched on the counter. The investment logs spread before me like a map of her undoing. My name, Ethan Cole, gleamed across them, a quiet mark she'd never traced, a spark I'd fan into her collapse. The lemonade stand loomed outside, its wooden frame a silent relic under the rising sun, a dream I'd free once I'd bankrupted her reign. I slipped into my SUV, the engine a low hum, and drove through the streets I'd shaped, smooth asphalt curling beneath street lamps, homes glowing with wealth I'd seeded beyond their sight. The neighborhood stirred, its lawns waking slow, but I felt their pulse. Larson's curtains twitching, Thompson's shadow shifting by his gate, a whisper spreading like ink through a ledger. They'd seen the stand, heard her edict, and now they watched, a pack scenting unrest I'd rouse. I stopped at my office, my boots echoing on the marble floor, the building a steady fortress where I'd forged empires before. Mia met me, her arms full of files, her eyes sharp with the hunt. No HOA vote, her call alone. You're clear.
Oh.
You're clear. I grinned, cold and sure, my fingers tracing the logs, proof of her overreach, a balance I'd tip at the meeting. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup pitch, my hands shaking as I signed the check. This was deeper. Her arrogance, their stand, a pinewood grove blind to the fortune I held. The streets whispered as I drove home, Carter's porch light flickering, Wilson's kids peering out, their chatter a ripple through the air. I saw it stretch, their trust stirring, her reign trembling, a pinewood grove waking to my spark. She thought she'd shut me down with that note. She'd lit a reckoning instead. I slipped inside, the dawn my ledger, the trap gleaming. She'd squeezed their dreams. I'd squeeze her world with a weight she'd never outbalance. The afternoon after the ledger stirred was a quiet forging, a heat rising slow over Pinewood Grove, the air thick with the scent of grass and the weight of my strike. I sat at my desk in the office, the investment logs a steady anchor before me. My name, Ethan Cole, a hidden vault she'd never cracked. The lemonade stand loomed in my mind, a relic of their dreams shut by her smug rules, its frame a quiet promise. I'd soon unleash. I'd dismantle her, not with a roar, but with the wealth I'd wielded, a trap she'd stumble into blind. I pulled my asset sheets from the drawer, their pages rustling in the slant of sunlight, a record I'd kept since 02, every startup, every deal, a fortune she'd never traced. I'd built that wealth, nights in boardrooms, mornings signing checks, bankrolling Pinewood Grove's dreams while they slept blind. Now tracing those sheets, I felt the old fire flare, an investor's duty, a father's edge. She'd shut their stand, I'd shut her world. Mia leaned in, her voice a low hum. Meeting set, 7 p.m., Clubhouse. She's doubling down. I nodded, my grin cold, my fingers tapping the logs. Her edict, my blade, a truth I'd bear. I remembered my first big win, 05, a tech boom, my hands steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand, a pinewood grove, blind to the billions I held. I saw it play out, her smug face at the podium, my sheets bared, her reign crumbling under my vault. I drove home, the SUV a shadow rolling through streets I'd shaped, their hum a steady pulse beneath me. The neighborhood buzzed, Larson's gate creaking, Thompson's shadow shifting, eyes on her house, curtains shut, her den sealed. I slipped inside, the afternoon my forge, the trap's vault tightening. She'd swung her gavel, I'd swing my fortune with a force she'd never outbid. The dusk after the vault gleamed was a gathering storm, a veil falling sharp over Pinewood Grove, the air thick with cedar and my intent. I stood in my driveway, the lemonade stand a quiet relic under the fading light, the investment logs a steady weight in my jacket. Her house loomed, white and smug, roses clipped, a fortress I'd bankrupt. The meeting loomed, 7 p.m., her stage my strike, and I'd stalk her there, a storm she'd never weather. I drove to her street, slow, deliberate, the SUV a shadow rolling through asphalt I'd shaped, its hum a steady pulse against my ribs. Her driveway glowed, her Mercedes parked tight, a smug sentinel guarding her edict. I stopped a block away, my boots crunching gravel as I circled closer, the dusk my cloak. Her porch light flickered, her shadow pacing behind curtains, a queen sensing unrest but blind to its spark. The stand's loss burned, a dream I'd fought for, choked by her petty gavel, but I held it, my fury a steady flame. I remembered her note, pinned to my mailbox, her shut it down a lash. I'd turn back, she'd squeezed their joy, thought she'd won. I grinned, cold and sure, my hand tracing the logs, proof of my fortune, a vault she'd never cracked. I saw it stretch her smug nod at the podium, my voice cutting through, the pack's shock as I bared the truth. She'd shut their stand, I'd shut her reign. The streets stirred, Carter's broom pausing, Wilson's kids peering out, their eyes on her house, a whisper rising like ink through a ledger. I slipped home, the dusk my shield, the storm's ledger near. She'd choke their dreams with her arrogance, I'd choke her pride with my wealth. The twilight after the storm brewed was a restless vigil, a glow fading slow over Pinewood Grove, the air humming with the pack's awakening and the tang of my intent. I stood in my kitchen, the investment log spread like a balance sheet of her undoing. My name, Ethan Cole, a quiet mark gleaming in the dusk once more. The lemonade stand loomed outside, a relic of their dreams, its frame sagging under her edict, but I'd free it, a trap she'd stumble into blind. The meeting was close, 7 p.m., her stage my snare, and the streets stirred, neighbors waking like a surge through my fortune. I slipped into my jacket, the logs a steady weight against my chest, my boots echoing as I stepped onto the porch. Mrs. Larson crossed over, her steps quick, her shadow sharp in the fading light, her voice low. She shut the kids' stand, heard it from Thompson. No vote, I replied, my grin cold, my hand tapping the logs. She's exposed, her eyes flared, a spark catching. I remembered a deal, 05, a tech boom, neighbors cheering till I cashed it right. This was the same, her edict, their stand, a Pinewood Grove stirring under my spark. Mr. Thompson loomed by his gate, his silhouette broad, his voice a growl. She's got nerve, crushing their fun. Nerve'll cost her, I said, my gaze steady. Tonight, the pack grew, Carter peering out, Wilson's kids darting closer, their chatter a ripple through the air. I saw it stretch, their trust rising, her reign trembling, a Pinewood Grove waking to my truth. She thought she'd shut me down with that note. She'd lit a surge instead. I drove to the clubhouse, the pack trailing, Larson, Thompson, Carter, a balance swelling. She'd squeezed their dreams. I'd squeeze her reign with a fortune she'd never outmatch. The night the trap balanced was a breaking vault, a surge shattering Pinewood Grove stillness, the air thick with the scent of cedar and my intent. I stepped into the clubhouse, the investment logs heavy in my jacket, my name, Ethan Cole, a hidden mark, gleaming in the warm light once more. The crowd gathered, Larson, Thompson, Carter, Wilson, half the street, their eyes glinting like a pack at the balance's end. Karen stood at the podium, her blazer crisp, her clipboard trembling as she raised her gavel. It fell, a weak thud, her voice thin. "We're addressing violations. Ethan Cole's stand first." I moved fast, the pack parting, my steps a steady pulse on the hard wood. "Their stand," I said, my voice a blade slicing her silence. "The one you shut?" Her gavel froze, her eyes locking on me, appraise panic flickering. "Rules, no businesses." I pulled the logs, my fortune flashing. Ethan Cole, billionaire investor, a mark she'd never traced. "I'm a billionaire," I said, my voice ice cutting through. "Own more than you can count. Tech, real estate, billions since '02. You shut my kid's stand. No vote, no right." Her face drained, pale as the walls, her voice a squeak. "That's not possible. Not possible." I tossed the logs, deal sheets, her edict onto the table, my grin cold. "You're done, Karen." The room surged. Larson rose, her shout a spark. "You've got no right." Thompson's fists clenched, his growl low. "She's caught." Carter's voice rose, fierce. "He owns it all." Karen stumbled, her clipboard slipping, her eyes darting. I followed rules. Rules I outweigh. I cut in, steady, deadly. "Your reign's mine." The pack roared, a balance crashing. Larson, Thompson, Wilson surging. Karen shrank, her gavel fallen. My trap sprung. She'd shut their dreams with her edict. I'd toppled her throne with my wealth. The roar after the gavel fell was a vault cracking wide, a surge shattering the clubhouse's stillness, the air thick with the scent of cedar and the weight of my fortune unleashed. I stood at the heart of it, the investment logs scattered like coins on the table, my name Ethan Cole glinting in the warm light, like a signature sealing her fate. Karen shrank back, her blazer crumpled, her clipboard abandoned, a queen bankrupted by the pack I'd rallied. The crowd surged around me, Larson's shadow sharp, Thompson's fists clenched, Carter's eyes blazing, half of Pinewood Grove, their growls a chorus I'd summoned from the wealth I'd wielded. I stepped forward, my boots a steady thud on the hardwood, the lemonade stand's closure a ghost in my mind, a dream I'd fought for, choked by her smug rules. Her eyes darted, wide and frantic, a ledger unbalanced in the glare of my truth. The sting of its loss burned, a joy I'd built for Sophie and Jack, now shut under her gavel, but now it fueled me, a fire I'd turn on her throne. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup pitch, my hands shaking as I signed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand a Pinewood Grove blind to the billions I held. Mrs. Larson moved beside me, her presence a steady wind fanning the surge, her voice low but cutting. "You crushed their joy. No right." Thompson loomed, his silhouette a wall, his breath heavy with outrage. The Wilsons pressed closer, their kids' eyes wide, a ripple of awe and fury threading through the pack. I held the logs higher, my fortune a beacon, my voice a quiet blade slicing the chaos. "You broke your own rules, Karen. No vote, no power. I own more than this street. Billions since 02. She stumbled back, her heels scraping, her face twisting, a balance sheet collapsing, panic spilling through. She stammered, her voice a thin plea fading. This isn't I didn't know." But the pack drowned her, their shouts a tide crashing over her frail denials. Larson's howl, Thompson's growl, Carter's sharp cry weaving a net. She couldn't escape. I saw it then, Mia's shadow at the door, more files in hand, a storm I'd called to finish this. The fire in me steadied, an investor's calm settling over the fury. She'd shut their stand with her petty edict. I'd unleashed a fortune to break her reign. The dusk after the pack roared was a breaking chain, a sound shattering the stillness of Pinewood Grove, the air alive with the echo of their laughter and my intent. I stood in my driveway, the lemonade stand a quiet relic under the fading light, the investment logs a steady weight in my jacket. The clubhouse meeting had ended in chaos. Karen fleeing, the pack trailing me, and now I waited, my SUV parked silent, my kids a steady pulse beside me. Once more. The stand's revival loomed, A dream I'd free, a joy I'd reclaim from her dust. I grabbed my hammer, its weight steady in my palm, and began, nails sinking into fresh wood, the scent of pine sharp as I rebuilt what she'd shut. Sophie and Jack darted around, their hands hauling planks, their giggles a melody I'd fought to hear again. The air smelled of citrus and grass, a quiet hum threading through the dusk, a fortune I'd wielded for decades now mine to share. Mia signaled from the curb, her silhouette sharp against the street lamp, a smile tugging as she watched. I remembered building it, all weeks back, a weekend with them, my hands guiding theirs to hammer it right. Karen had choked that, her note a gavel I'd turned back. Now, I lifted the first plank, its edge steady in my grip, and set it, nails sinking deep, a hum rising as it stood tall. The pack stirred, Larson's gasp, Thompson's gruff cheer, Carter's sharp cry weaving a chorus around us. Underscore once more underscore. I grinned, cold and sure, my hand tracing the wood, a dream reborn, a dawn I'd rested free. Her house loomed dark, curtains shut, her Mercedes gone, a fortress bankrupted as my crew moved in. She'd shut their joy, I'd lit it anew with a fortune she'd never outweigh. The night after the stand rose was a fading ledger, a silence threading through Pinewood Grove, the air thick with the dust of her rain and the scent of my kids' laughter. I stood in my driveway, the lemonade stand gleaming, a frame of wood catching the street lamp's glow, a dream I'd freed from her chokehold underscore once more, underscore. The street pulsed, lawns alive, houses humming, a fortune I'd powered while her house stood darker. Curtains shut, the for sale sign stabbed into her lawn, a ruin crumbling under my truth. I'd watched her fall, Mia's files pinning her, her voice a shrill plea as the pack surged. She'd tried to flee, heels scraping, her blazer flapping, but the wealth I'd wielded was a balance she couldn't shift. I remembered my first big win, 05, a tech boom, my hand steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand, a Pinewood Grove blind to the billions I held. The pack had roared, Larson's fire, Thompson's stone, Carter's sharp eyes, a tide I'd led to her collapse. Mrs. Larson crossed over, her steps slow, her eyes on the stand as Max barked beside me, his voice a wild note in the night. She's gone, fined, selling, she said, her voice a quiet spark. You okay? I nodded, the coffee's warmth steadying me underscore once more underscore. Max's bark a steady thump at my feet. Stands up, she's not. You bankrupted her, she replied, her gaze firm. Showed us. I grinned, small and steady. The pack had shifted. Neighbors nodding as they passed, kids darting free, a Pinewood Grove waking from her grip. I saw it hold, no more edicts, a street alive, an investor's mark forged in her collapse. She'd shut their dreams with her edict. I'd plunged her reign into ruin with my wealth. The dawn after the queen faded was a soft rekindling, a light breaking gentle over Pinewood Grove, the air fresh with dew and the hum of my kids' chatter. I stood in my driveway, coffee steaming, the lemonade stand gleaming, a frame of wood soaking the sun, their laughter a quiet pulse. I'd fought to reclaim underscore once more underscore. The street woke, lawns glinting, houses humming, a web I'd powered while her house stood darker. The for sale sign swaying, a ghost fading into the dawn we'd built. I walked the street, Max at my heels, his tail a steady beat against my leg. Thompson waved from his gate, his gruff nod a spark in the dawn, his voice low. She's out, good riddance. I grinned, the coffee's bitterness, grounding me underscore once more underscore. Stand stays, she doesn't. Carter crossed over, her steps light, her eyes on the stand. You're a billionaire, she said, soft, awed, kept it quiet. Until she pushed, I replied, my gaze steady. Now they know. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup pitch, my hands shaking as I signed. Karen had shut their stand, thought she'd won. Now the pack moved, Larson nodding, Wilson's kids darting, a Pinewood Grove alive with my mark. I saw it stretch, no more dreams dimmed, a street pulsing, an investor's truth forged in her fall. Max barked, his eyes bright, and I grinned. The dawn. Ours. She'd choked their joy with her arrogance. I'd pulsed our freedom with their trust. The dusk after the pulse took root was a steady glow, a twilight draping Pinewood Grove in quiet gold, the air rich with cedar and Max's warm scent. I sat on my porch, beer cold in my grip, the lemonade stand standing proud, its wooden frame sharp against the dusk, a dream I'd freed from her chokehold, once more, The street settled, lawns glinting, houses humming, a peace I'd powered with the fortune I'd wielded. Her house stood dark, the for sale sign a faint scar swaying. Her reign a shadow the pack had bankrupted. I leaned back, my fingers tracing his fur, a bond I'd fought to reclaim. The fight had been a surge, her note a spark, the stand's closure a storm I'd tracked through her lies. I'd faced her with an investor's calm, turned her edict into her fall, but the pack had sealed it. Larson's wind, Thompson's stone, Carter's flame, forging a peace I'd never planned. I remembered my first big win, 05. A tech boom, my hands steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand, a Pinewood Grove reborn in our truth. Mr. Thompson crossed over, his steps slow, his shadow broad in the dusk. She's fined, shamed, he said, his voice gruff but warm. You good? I nodded, the beer's chill steadying me once more. Stands up, she's not. You invested us, he replied, his gaze firm. Showed her. I grinned, small and steady. The pack had risen. Neighbors nodding, kids darting, a Pinewood Grove free of her grip. I saw it hold no more edicts. A street alive, an investor's rest forged in their trust. Max barked, his eyes glinting, and I leaned back. The dusk hours. She'd shut their dreams with her edict. I'd powered our peace with their strength. The morning after the investor rested broke with a gentle hum, a light spilling soft over Pinewood Grove, the air crisp with the scent of citrus and the steady chatter of my kids' laughter. I stood in my driveway, coffee steaming in my grip, the lemonade stand gleaming, a frame of wood catching the dawn's glow, its jars sparkling with fresh lemonade. Sophie and Jack had poured once more. Max darted around, his bark a wild note rising free, a rhythm we'd reclaimed from her dust. Her house loomed dark across the street, the for sale sign swaying like a fallen ledger, a ruin fading into the dawn we'd bankrolled. I knelt, my fingers tracing the stand's edge, its wood warm with the pride I'd fought to restore. The street woke alive, neighbors spilling out, their steps light, their voices humming with a joy we'd forged. Mrs. Larson crossed over, her shadow sharp in the morning light, a handful of coins in her hands. Max bounded to her, his tail a frantic whip, and she laughed, a sound bright and free, a spark in the new day we'd lit. I stood, the coffee's warmth grounding me once more, and watched her drop the coins into their jar, their grins wide as they handed her a cup. They're back, she said, her voice a steady breeze, her gaze on the stand. You did that, we all did, I replied, my grin small but sure. Pack's richer now. She nodded, her eyes tracing the street, Thompson hauling chairs, Carter tending her porch, Wilson's kids darting with cups. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup pitch, my hands shaking as I signed the check. Karen had shut their stand, squeezed their dreams with her smug edict. Now the pack surged, Larson's wind, Thompson's stone, Carter's flame, a Pinewood Grove alive with our mark. I saw it stretch, no more dreams dimmed, a street pulsing free, a harmony forged from her fall. Max barked, his eyes glinting, and I grinned. The dawn hours. She'd crushed their joy with her arrogance. I'd lifted our spirit with their trust. The dusk after the new dawn settled was a quiet rekindling, a twilight threading gold over Pinewood Grove, the air rich with cedar and Max's steady thump. I stood in my driveway, beer cold in my grip, the lemonade stand standing tall, its wooden frame sharp against the fading light, a legacy I'd freed from her chokehold. Once more. The street glowed, lawns glinting, houses humming, a web I'd powered with the fortune I'd wielded. Her house faded, the for sale sign a ghost swaying, her reign a shadow the pack had buried. I grabbed my ledger, its pages steady in my palm, and checked, coins piling up, their charity jar full, a quiet pulse I'd fought to hear again. The fight had been a storm, her note a spark, the stand's closure a gale. I'd tracked through her lies. I'd faced her with an investor's calm, turned her edict into her fall, but the pack had bankrolled it. Larson's wind, Thompson's stone, Carter's flame weaving a strength I hadn't planned. I remembered my first big win, 05, a tech boom, my hands steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand, a pinewood grove waking to my wealth. Mr. Thompson crossed over, his steps slow, a coin in his hand. "They're thriving," he said, his voice gruff but warm, dropping it into the jar. "Good call." I grinned, watching Sophie pour. "They'll keep it free now." "You broke her," he replied, a spark lingering. The pack stirred, Larson peering out, Carter's broom pausing, their eyes on the bustling stand. I saw it grow. No more edicts, a street alive, a legacy reborn from her ruin. The investor in me rested, not to rule, but to nurture, a peace forged in their trust. Max barked below, his eyes bright, and I grinned. The dusk hours. She'd shut their dreams with her edict. I'd built their legacy with our strength. The morning after the legacy stood firm was a bold surge, a light breaking sharp over Pinewood Grove, the air alive with the scent of lemonade, and Max's wild run. I stood in my driveway, coffee steaming, the lemonade stand shining, its wooden frames soaking the sun, their laughter a steady beat, threading through the dawn once more. The street pulsed, lawns waking, houses humming, a rhythm reborn from her dust. Her house stood dark, the for sale sign swaying, a relic fading as the pack rose. I walked the street, Max at my heels, his tail a steady beat against my leg. Mrs. Carter waved from her porch, her broom sweeping a tune, her smile a crack in her once stiff shell. Mr. Thompson hauled chairs by his gate, his gruff hum weaving through, a coin clanking as he paid the kids. Wilson's kids darted past, their chatter a high trill, their cups sloshing lemonade, a pulse we'd claimed. I remembered my first deal, 02, a startup pitch, my hands shaking as I signed. Karen had shut their stand, choked their joy with her smug edict. Now, the pack moved, Larson nodding, Henderson peering out, a Pinewood Grove alive with my mark. I saw it stretch. No more dreams grounded, a street pulsing, an investor's truth forged in their trust. The stand stood, strong, free, a mark of what we'd built. Mrs. Larson called, her voice soft but sure. "They're thriving, better now." I grinned, ruffling his ears. We made it together. The streets pulsed, lawns alive, houses free, a harmony forged from her fall. Max barked, his eyes glinting, and I walked on, the pulse ours. She'd crushed their joy with her folly. I'd powered our freedom with their spirit. The dusk after the pulse took root was a steady glow, a twilight draping Pinewood Grove in quiet gold, the air rich with cedar and Max's warm scent. I sat on my porch, beer cold in my grip, the lemonade stand standing proud, its wooden frame sharp against the dusk, a dream I'd freed from her chokehold once more. The street settled, lawns glinting, houses humming, a peace I'd powered with the fortune I'd wielded. Her house stood dark, the for sale sign a faint scar, swaying, her reign a shadow the pack had bankrupted. I leaned back, my fingers tracing his fur, a bond I'd fought to reclaim. The fight had been a surge, her note a spark, the stand's closure a storm I'd tracked through her lies. I'd faced her with an investor's calm, turned her edict into her fall, but the pack had invested it. Larson's wind, Thompson's stone, Carter's flame, weaving a peace I'd never planned. I remembered my first big win, 05, a tech boom, my hands steady as I cashed the check. This was deeper, her arrogance, their stand, a Pinewood Grove reborn in our truth. Mrs. Larson crossed over, her steps slow, her eyes on the stand as Max stretched, his yawn a quiet note. "It's over," she said, her voice soft. "Sure, you saved them." "We did," I replied, the beer's chill steadying me once more. Pax peace. She nodded, a spark lingering. I saw it hold no more edicts, a street alive, a harmony invested by their trust, a pinewood grove free, pulsing with what we'd built. Max barked, his eyes glinting, and I grinned. The dusk hours. She'd shut their dreams with her edict. I'd invested our peace with their strength.